So I think that having anxiety, like, honestly makes this even harder to talk about because I think about the stupidest things. Like, okay, do I need to take a shower? Because it looks like I haven't taken a shower today. Or is this going to, be a trigger for some people? Or is somebody going to think I'm a know-it-all? Anxiety attacks literally every single part of your life in ways that you do and do not know. And unfortunately, it took a really long time to figure out that I even had anxiety. So as we go into this video about anxiety, one of the things that I think is really important for me that is that how my anxiety looks is not how other people's anxiety looks. And this is truly just like a testament of what anxiety means to me. And I sat on this for like a good week. Like, I posed this question a couple weeks ago to figure out like how I wanted to accomplish this, because as we all know, I'm a rambler. Like, I could literally talk for days. And so I wanted to make sure that like this video was short, sweet, to the point, but still valuable enough that like maybe it helps somebody out. So I'm going to tell you how to spell anxiety. Anxiety starts with an A. And in my case, anxiety stands for awkwardness. There are situations in my life where I know that like I am capable of, I don't know, being an adult, but because of my anxiety, I go into certain situations and I'm super awkward. And that awkwardness is probably just my awkwardness. Like, there's a chance that I don't look awkward to anybody else. There's a chance that, nobody else sees it as awkwardness, but I do. And it was awkward, even like being at the doctor to discuss like the idea of anxiety, because after losing the babies, every doctor that I saw said that I was depressed, which made a lot of sense. I mean, depression runs rampant in my family, so it made sense that, to some degree I would be depressed. But because I feel like I'm a WebMD doctor sometimes, I spent a lot of time looking at the differences between depression and anxiety. And although I was sad and heartbroken and upset that I had lost these babies and that I wasn't able to have kids, I wasn't at a point in my life where I was depressed. I was sad. I wasn't depressed. And I feel like those two things are different. And again, don't get me wrong, depression and anxiety go hand in hand. And for a lot of people, their anxiety manifests as depression. And mine doesn't. So it's really awkward being in a doctor's office when they're telling you, oh, you're just depressed. And you're saying, no, I'm not. Like, I know that the situations in my life tell you that I'm depressed, but I'm not. The next letter in anxiety is N. And for me, anxiety makes me nervous. I get nervous literally about the stupidest things. I get nervous to leave the bathroom because what if the toilet didn't flush? Or I get nervous when I'm talking to people, because even in trying to be myself, I care so much about other people's feelings and their emotions and all of those things. So literally every little thing makes me nervous in one way, shape, or form. Gift giving is something I suck at because like, I get nervous that people aren't going to like the gifts that I give them, or maybe I didn't spend enough money, or maybe I spent too much money. Like, being nervous almost is like higher on my list than being anxious, because I get nervous about everything. Like there are some days where I don't understand how I get things done, because I literally could talk myself out of everything. I have an excuse, or I have a why and a what for literally every single thing I do. And that's because I get nervous. When I have, when I go places, when I have to do things, when I have to talk to people, all of these things make me nervous. And so somebody's going to say, you're a teacher. You talk to kids every day. You stand in front of your classroom. Like, how does that make you nervous? How does teaching, make you nervous or whatever? How does being nervous affect teaching? It's because every day you're in front of people. But like, sometimes I get nervous that a kid is going to tell me, you don't know what you're talking about. Or that maybe I'm going to present something wrong. Or that I'm going to be the reason that a kid's GPA gets messed up. Or there are a number of things that that make me nervous in teaching. But I think that my passion for teaching kind of counteracts, I guess, the nervousness. But overall, like, being nervous is another manifestation of anxiety in my life. And I guess that like leads to the next letter. Let's begin with the idea that the next letter in anxiety is X. And I'll be honest, I didn't look in a dictionary because I didn't want to. But like extreme, which we can pretend the E is silent. Extreme is probably like the best way, I think, to highlight the ups and downs of anxiety. There are extreme lows and there are extreme highs, and that's a lot like, I guess, being bipolar. But there are all of these extremes that you can't necessarily account for. Like, I could be extremely happy and then think of something and all of a sudden I'm extremely sad. Or I could be extremely nervous about something. Anxiety comes with the idea of being extreme, and you feel extreme, which makes you even more anxious. And then, there are times that you are being extreme, and that's problematic as well. I can't tell you how many times Tyler and I have sat down and I've explained a situation to him, and, bless his heart, but he's like, that's ridiculous. And that's because, I've taken it to the nth degree and I've overanalyzed every piece of the situation, and essentially taking it to its extreme. And so anxiety is, in fact, extreme. I think my favorite letter in anxiety is I. And I said that I stands for ignorance because, much like mental health in general, each of us are ignorant in one way, shape, or form about what mental illness is and how it affects us and the different types of mental illness. And then on top of that, that makes us as a whole even more ignorant. So we haven't put in enough time or enough energy to really address what mental health is and the different ways that mental health manifests itself, and how how being mentally unhealthy essentially, can affect someone's life. And so, my ignorance and other people's ignorance and society's ignorance in general adds to being anxious or being nervous about having anxiety. And that's, I think, a really unfortunate situation. And I think that especially in probably the last year, there's been a lot that's been put into trying to explain and trying to go over what what mental health is and how we can help to change the stigma around mental health, which will essentially help eliminate that ignorance. E, there are a lot of E words that help to kind of tell you what anxiety looks like to me, because again, this is what anxiety looks like to me. It's not what anxiety looks like to everybody. I am not the poster child for anxiety. This is just my experience with anxiety. And so I chose embarrassed because all my life I've tried to be perfect. And somebody's gonna say, well, you're an idiot for trying to be perfect. I think that each of us tries to be perfect in one way, shape, or form. But I have worked really hard to be perfect. And there are a number of things that I've learned that are beyond my grasp. And so, like, again, a lot of this stems from the trigger of not being able to have kids, and the inadequacy that comes from that. Feeling like I'm not as much of a woman as other women are because they're able to have kids and I am not. Or being embarrassed about being a part of a conversation because I don't really have any skin in that game. I can't talk about having a kid. And by that I mean birthing one or carrying one. And so you find yourself embarrassed about the way, I find myself embarrassed about the way that I became a mom. And that sounds really stupid, even coming out of my mouth. Because if you haven't met Riddick and you haven't met Riley and you haven't met all of my foreign exchange kids, then you literally have no idea how unembarrassing they are. And there are a number of times that I celebrate how I became a mom and how unique it is and how blessed I am to have an experience that not many other people have. But that to me is embarrassing, which then adds to the anxiety of conversations that have to do with being a mom. For example, we were in church the other day and the pastor was giving like this wonderful message on marriage, because the whole series is on marriage. And he talked about how in marriage it is our job to reproduce, and automatically that's a trigger. And so I sink down in my seat and I'm like, well, can't do that. So, I'm not a contributing member of society. Which to me is embarrassing. And then I'm reading Tuesdays with Maury, and one of the things that Maury comments on is like one of our greatest jobs in life is to be able to contribute to society by having kids and raising kids and things like that. And again, kind of clam up, and because you're embarrassed because that's not you. The other piece of that embarrassing thing is admitting to people that you do have anxiety. And so there are a number of things that I just cannot do. I refuse to do. And when I say, yeah, no, I'm not, no, I'm good, I'll pass, it's because I know that it puts me in a position where, I can have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, or my chest tightens up real tight. I feel like I can't breathe. And you get embarrassed about that because everybody else can do it. Why can't you? It's part of living with anxiety. Being embarrassed, feeling awkward about being embarrassed, being nervous that something is going to make you embarrassed. And then you're back to the highs and lows of having anxiety. Almost there. 2 more letters. I chose tenacity, or being tenacious, for T because I also wanted energy to be a part of the E. So I felt like they all went together. To have anxiety, you literally have to have a lot of energy and you have to be tenacious, because let me go back. I have to have a lot of energy and I have to be tenacious and I have to power through, because if I were to allow my anxiety to control me, I would not be the person that I am. And I don't think I'm some awesome person. I definitely don't think I'm awesome. I have a lot of growing to do. But it would make it hard for me to get out of bed. It would make it hard for me to go to work. It would make it hard for me to be a mom. It would make it hard for me to be a wife. So one must be tenacious in that they are willing to push through all of those things to still be able to live a happy life, and tell anxiety that anxiety doesn't get to win. It doesn't get to win. And that also means that every single night I must take my anxiety medicine, because without taking it, I am on edge all of the time. I could cry at the drop of a hat. I could be upset. I could be wild and crazy. I am 100% thankful for my anxiety medicine, and thankful for a doctor that listened to how I felt and why I felt the way that I did, and told me that I wasn't depressed and that I had anxiety and we needed to fix the anxiety. And I don't take a lot of medicine for anything. Like, I actually despise taking medicine, but that is a staple of my life, and I refuse to live without it. Why? The last letter in anxiety. Why did I choose, or what did I choose for why? And I chose you. Y-O-U. I chose you because there are pieces of you that has anxiety. There are people around you that have anxiety. There are people that you haven't met that you will meet in the future that have anxiety. There are people that you're going to see on TV that have anxiety. And if you take a moment to recognize that the people around you, have things that affect them in their lives, and things that you may not ever understand, then you'll make people feel less anxious. I absolutely am okay telling people that I have anxiety, but it took a long time to get to that point, again, because I was embarrassed that I had anxiety. But now my circle knows that I have anxiety, and they're there to hold me up, even when they don't know that they're doing it, and making it easier to live with having anxiety. So, again, I spelled anxiety with an A for awkwardness, N for nervousness, X for extreme, I for ignorance, E for embarrassment, I for tenacity, and Y for you. And beyond anything else, I hope that this helps you or someone you know to be okay with having anxiety, because it may be a piece of you, but it is not what defines you.